When the driver opened the school bus's door that day to a local man he was just trying to be a friend to, he never could have expected that the man would have a gun and would demand a child. For 6 days, he kept that child underground as the FBI dealt with his explosives, his demands, and his rantings and ravings. This is the story of the Alabama bunker hostage crisis, the heroes who helped rescue a little boy, and the injustice collector who thought he needed to repay the world for what it had done to him. Hi friends, I'm Katie, and this is Katie Does Crime. Thank you for joining me for the first time if you're new here. I'm a Midwesterner who now lives in New York City, putting my writing degree to use by researching true crime cases that interest me, and hopefully you. And hello to the usual rapscallions and reprobates. Please consider subscribing or joining me on Patreon if you'd like to hear more true crime stories. While I was researching the Alabama torture bunker for another video recently, I kept coming across articles about a different Alabama bunker, one that was the site of a hostage crisis in 2013. And on this channel, we will leave no bunker unturned. The story began on January 28, 2013, when school bus driver Charles Chuck Poland Jr. turned around in a driveway at the top of Private Road 1539, a dirt road near Midland City, Alabama. If you're a Top Chef fan, it's near where Kelsey, who won Top Chef Kentucky, has her restaurant in Dothan. A local man there had recently cleared a bunch of oak trees on his property that made it easier for the bus to turn around, and the driver, Chuck, was thankful. To me, it sounds like Chuck was just one of those great suspender-wearing Southern gentlemen, 66 years old, married to Mary for 43 years, a former Army mechanic, a gardener, and the kind of guy who cared for the students on his bus like he would his own kids and grandkids. When the guy who cleared out the trees approached the bus that day, Chuck expressed his gratitude, and the guy said, "I'd figured you'd appreciate that." He also offered to bring Chuck some vegetables from his garden the next day.
How you doing, sir? I like that. Appreciate it. Yeah. Okay.
Hey, do you like broccoli and carrots?
Yeah, I like broccoli.
I'm just a small of that.
Okay.
Chuck told his 21 school kids that the man had done them all a great act of kindness by clearing out the driveway for the bus during Christmas. And wanting to do a kind act back, Chuck brought some eggs and homemade jelly for the man the next day. He left it in the man's van in the driveway with a note that said, "Sorry I missed you, see you later," and gave his phone number. Chuck had told his wife that the man seemed like he could use a friend. Later that day, when Chuck turned his bus around, he saw the man approach with a plastic bag chock full of homegrown broccoli as promised. Chuck opened the door for him and must have been shocked as the man boarded with his pistol drawn. He gave Chuck a letter that said he had a story to tell, that he needed Chuck to zip tie two well-behaved boys together, and that the boys wouldn't be harmed. It said, "When the story is finished, they will go free and I will die." The man was 65-year-old Jimmy Lee Dykes, and he probably did need a friend, but I'm not sure anyone less saintly than Chuck Poland would try to be that for him. From what I gather, Dykes was one of those guys who thought the world was against him and none of it was his fault. He was a former Vietnam vet who hated authority and loved guns. One of his daughters said he used to beat her mom, but her mom had long since left him and his daughters had long stopped talking to him. He'd once been a land surveyor, and then he'd been a truck driver, but that whole hatred of authority thing got in the way of him being able to really keep a job. He finally retired at 65 and lived beside a peanut field where he grew those vegetables he offered to the bus driver. His house was an old FEMA trailer, and his vehicle was a maroon and silver Econoline van. And I think he just kind of hated everyone and everything. Like he threatened to poison neighborhood dogs that pooped in his yard. He shot at grasshoppers with his pellet gun. He had a fight with one neighbor over who owned the pecans that fell from a tree between their properties. Another neighbor says he beat her dog to death with a lead pipe. He took it upon himself to build a speed bump on the dirt road by his house so that another neighbor with a sports car couldn't have too much fun. And when someone's pickup truck supposedly damaged the bump, he actually shot at that person. Basically the opposite of bus driver Chuck Poland. When Dykes said, "I don't want to shoot you," Chuck still refused to hand over even one of the children. He said, "Sorry, you're going to have to shoot me." One of the older kids in the back called 911 while Dykes yelled at 5-year-old Ethan Gilman to come forward. He was on the spectrum, so he sat close to the front so Chuck could keep an eye on him. He was also afraid of going down the bus stairs, so Chuck had been helping him work on his courage over time. Chuck wouldn't let little Ethan leave his seat, so Dykes said, "I'm going to have to shoot you now." Chuck said, "I can't do it. I can't."
I don't want to shoot now. I don't want to shoot. They won't be hurt if you stick.
No, I cannot risk the kids.
911, where's your emergency? I don't know where on the bus. Someone's trying to take our kids.
So Dykes shot him 5 times, and Chuck was dead. Truly a hero. Dykes pulled Ethan from the bus and carried him to an underground bunker, because, of course, this guy had a bunker. A neighbor said Dykes had built it the year before, and it was supposedly a storm shelter. When it was finished, he asked the neighbor to get inside and holler real loud to see if someone on the outside could hear it. The neighbor assumed that Dykes would want to be heard if he got trapped inside by a tree or something during a hurricane, and he thought it was super weird that Dykes seemed happy when he couldn't hear the hollering from the outside. When he got 5-year-old Ethan down to the bunker, he called 911 to announce that he'd taken a hostage and to tell the police how they could talk to him about his demands. There was a PVC pipe by his front gate that led through the ground back 170 feet to the bunker. When the authorities arrived, Dykes asked if Chuck was alive and then blamed the bus driver for his own death, saying it was his fault for not following orders. They got the neighbor to tell them about the bunker, which was about 6 feet by 8 feet, built below a little hill with a 2x4 wooden hatch on top. An FBI hostage negotiator arrived that night. They thought about trying to get a microphone or a little camera into the bunker through the PVC pipe, but found that Dykes had rigged up a bomb in it with a trigger cord that went back to the bunker. Imagine their horror when they noticed that there were about a dozen of those pipes planted around his yard. They didn't know at the time that none of the others had bombs in them. So the next day, they got the neighbors out of the area and rigged up a speaker and a microphone near the main pipe so they could chat with Dykes in his bunker from a distance without him knowing that they knew about his little bomb. A whole FBI hostage rescue team arrived, but they had no blueprint for Dykes' bunker, both literally and figuratively. They had never dealt with a situation where there was no door, no window, and really only a vague idea of what was down there, thanks to the neighbor who helped build it. They found out a little more, though, when they talked Dykes into letting them send some things down through the hatch for Ethan. His family said his mom had lost custody of him because of drugs and alcohol, and he was on several behavioral drugs. So Dykes opened the hatch a little to grab Ethan's medicine, crayons, and coloring books, and the FBI saw that the hatch had steel cables attached that he had to loosen to be able to raise it. They were also able to eventually smuggle in a camera with some supplies that gave them an idea that the bunker had a working TV, a 3-level bunk bed, and a toilet bucket with a tarp around it, for privacy. They also convinced Dykes to take a direct phone line from negotiators into the bunker so they could more easily talk about his demands. Dykes wanted a female reporter to come down to meet with him and share his manifesto with the world. When he was finished broadcasting, he would end his life by inhaling helium while the reporter held his hand. In exchange, he would let Ethan go. Several women volunteered, but the sheriff's office was worried that they would just end up with 2 hostages. One deputy spent 8 or 9 hours a day on the phone with Dykes, listening to his ravings on everything from gay marriage to Oprah Winfrey to the many times the government had supposedly screwed him over. He'd been arrested for drugs, drunk driving, assault, and larceny, and the day after he abducted Ethan, he was supposed to go to court to learn what his fate would be about shooting at that neighbor who supposedly ruined his homemade speed bump. Another neighbor said he listened to a lot of conservative talk radio and was against some new laws being made. The FBI's lead profiler called Dykes an injustice collector, someone who couldn't forget all of the terrible things people had supposedly done to him. He was the type of guy who would be talking about himself for 8 hours a day with one of the guys trying to negotiate with him, and if the guy tried to interrupt, Dykes would yell at him. And if the guy didn't talk enough to seem like he was still listening, Dykes would yell at him for that too. If you ever talked on the phone to my 91-year-old great aunt, rest her soul, you know exactly what I mean. He was the type of guy who would help his ex-wife work on the costume she wore to her job as an exotic dancer one day and then turn around and beat her the next. Neighbors were going on the news to talk about what a ticking time bomb Dykes was, so the sheriff had to then publicly thank him for taking care of our child. You had to walk on eggshells with this guy. On day 4, Navy engineers basically built a movie set of what they knew about the inside of the bunker so the FBI could practice their rescue. Because of the need to get inside quickly and the angle of the ladder leading down from the hatch, they couldn't just jump in and reliably land on the floor 12 feet down. So they built a bar that would go across the hole to the bunker that they could hang from before dropping down. They had found a receipt in Dykes' trash that showed he bought shotgun shells in one of those little camping propane bottles, so on day 5, they bought the same items and tried to reconstruct the bomb Dykes might have in the bunker with him and Ethan. On day 6, Dykes said they had until 5:30 the following afternoon to meet his demands, so they brought in his older daughter, 36-year-old Cindy, for a video call. She had last lived with her dad when she was 10, and they hadn't spoken for 25 years since. She brought an old photo of the two of them together from her childhood, along with photos of her kids, to show him on the video chat. She planned to say that she loved him and would visit him in prison if he gave himself up. She practiced with the FBI to be able to talk to him nicely when he might be angry and confrontational with her. But none of it mattered, because as soon as Dykes got to the bottom of his bunker ladder with the laptop from the officers, the FBI blew open the hatch, set the crossbar across the opening, and sent a Marine vet down into the hole. But as he was dropping down, he got caught on something. No one knew what it could be, so another agent went into the hole to try to push him down. Dykes started firing his gun at them and set off the bomb in the PVC pipe by his front gate. Smoke came back through the pipe and filled the bunker as the FBI tried to bring the agents up and send a German Shepherd attack dog down the hatch. But they finally realized that everyone was getting snagged on a homemade web of steel cables that Dykes had constructed, so they had to cut through that, buying themselves some time by sending more smoke into the bunker with flashbang grenades. The Marine went down again and felt around in the smoke for Dykes, but instead found Ethan. He covered the boy's body with his own against a wall while more agents jumped down and fought with Dykes. They shot him 12 times. So after 5 minutes of chaos, it was all over. Ethan was rescued. The sheriff cried when Ethan came up alive, and he still keeps a photo of the boy on his desk from what I've read. He was honored with a medal from the FBI for his work on the crisis. Alabama named a section of highway for bus driver Chuck Poland, and his family said his life, lived for the purpose of loving and caring for people, culminated with the same purpose evident. His wife said he loved everybody and he was loved. An Alabama law named after him makes it illegal for an adult to board a bus without permission from the driver. Cindy Dykes felt used by the FBI at first, but now understands that her dad didn't leave them much choice. Ethan turned 6 years old 2 days after he was rescued and got to visit the Alabama governor's office. A year after he was taken hostage, Ethan was doing well, wasn't showing signs of trauma, and according to his older brother, rarely talked about what happened. His mom said that she had forgiven Dykes and that he had taken care of Ethan to the best of his abilities. With his biological family unable to care for him, a preacher and his wife eventually adopted Ethan. So now he's Ethan Turner, and it looks like he's grown into a fine young man with a lot of love in his life. It turns out that when he was a toddler in the foster care system because of his mom's struggles, the Turners met him through a program that gave foster parents time off on the weekends. They always imagined themselves adopting him one day, and they finally had their chance to bring him home in 2015. It feels almost meant to be. I hope that Ethan continues to find peace in his future, and I hope Chuck Poland is resting in peace now. Thank you to the Wall Street Journal for their amazing reporting on this, and as always, please let me know what you think about this case in the comments. Thank you for tuning in today. I'm just a true crime fan like you are, and I really appreciate you taking a chance on me. Please like and subscribe to my channel if you like spending this time together. I would be so appreciative. Until next time, I'm Katie, and this has been Katie Does Crime.